Good evening. We're 24 hours away from the UEFA Super Cup in Istanbul. Chelsea with a huge point to prove after their opening Premier League defeat. And despite that huge loss, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp insists his side are not the favourites tomorrow night.
Wow, it's a 4.5-hour flight. Wow, it's a 4.5-hour flight. So Istanbul around the corner would be nicer, but apart from that, it's a big one. The Super Cup itself is in my history not a cup which I really love to watch in the past, because I was so often in the final, either final if you want, and then the Super Cup is obviously the final proof you are not in that game, so it means you didn't win the final. So that's completely different this year, and so we're looking forward to it. It's a big one. It's a wonderful city, obviously, and again, two English teams against each other, which is another sign or proof for the quality of the Premier League in the moment. Yeah, hopefully. It was not an eye catcher, I would say, this game, but it's not about that. You saw both teams had pressure, both teams had felt the intensity of and the importance of the final, which can lead to strange things. And then the early goal we scored, we can prepare for pretty much everything in a football game, but not for a 1-0 after 1 minute. What the whole season showed, we were really mature. We became really mature during the year. We should show that again. It's a final, but the big difference between the Champions League final and this game is it's a new season. Different opponent, obviously, and Chelsea changed a lot. New manager, Enas are not there anymore. Frank Lampard coming in, did a brilliant job at Derby. People will say we are favourite because we became second last year, stuff like we won the Champions League. But it's about who's more ready that day, and hopefully it's us.
So Klopp says it's down to who wants it more on the day, but Chelsea legend Gianfranco Zola thinks Liverpool have the advantage. The Italian joined us on beIN Sports for the opening Premier League weekend. He feels Frank Lampard shouldn't let Sunday's defeat at Old Trafford affect his team.
I cannot tell him anything because he's got the control, the pulse of the team. So, you know, the only thing I can say, results like that, they are not, they don't, you know, reflect what the match said. So he will have to continue working, don't take too much notice of today's result, and keep doing the things that has to be done. They have another tough match in which the team that they play against, they are exceptionally good in counter-attack. So they will have straight away to adjust. But it's, you know, it's a game in which you know, they. I'm sure they have the possibilities, because Liverpool is fantastic going forward, but they will concede something, so it will be down to them to take advantage of that.
And having seen Liverpool and Chelsea both in action now this weekend, who do you think is going to win the match on Wednesday?
Well, it's you know, considering the results, it comes easy to say, you know, Liverpool, but it's going to be a completely different game. It's a final, and so, you know, we'll see something different. Although obviously, considering the moment and the quality of the team, Liverpool has got an advantage.
Richard Biles asking the questions there. So that's what a legend thinks. What about...
It's credit for it. They raised their level. They missed the Champions League trophy last season. So I think it's something very good at what they are doing. But we need to focus on ourselves. I'm sure that we will try to hurt them when we can, but we have to be aware of their qualities, because they have a lot, and they show that they were the strongest team in Europe, and it's up to us to raise our level and to match them and hopefully to beat them. Obviously, it's something special because you play against Liverpool. It's the first week of competitive games, so you can start the season very well. It's a target for us. So I'm sure that all of us, the manager, the staff, the players, we have to work hard to get into the best condition possible at that time to lift that trophy, because personally I have something inside that I want to take it out, and hopefully we can get it back to the beach on the 14th of August.
Against Southampton, well, long term, no, but short term, it's their next game, and it's one that they really want to win. They've been in it 5 times before, they've won it 3 times before. Jordan Henderson says they want to win it again.
Every game we treat seriously, you know. We want to win every game. That's the way that we've been for a long time now, you know. We just take each game as it comes. We want to perform to the highest level that we're capable of. And win every game, whether that's Premier League, Super Cup, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, whatever it may be. We want to compete and we want to win every game.
There's no doubt Liverpool want to win everything this year, Simon, but bad news for them is Alisson's injury. Do we know roughly when he's going to be back?
Yeah, it's not great, is it, considering what a really key figure that is in the Liverpool squad. It's a serious calf injury. It could be between 6 to 8 weeks, and that could mean him missing the next 8 matches, obviously including the Super Cup game. Did it against Norwich City. Jurgen Klopp doesn't really know, because he's never had this sort of injury before, how quickly he will heal. He's hoping he will heal quicker. It's a 23-man squad, incidentally, that's heading out to Turkey for this one, including Adrian and now Andrew Lonergan, the reserve goalkeepers. There is no Dejan Lovren, though. The official reason for him not travelling is that he is ill. I'm also hearing, though, that Italian side AS Roma are about to open talks with the club about a potential £15 million move for the defender.
Very interesting. OK, thank you very much for now, Simon.
OK, Chelsea have arrived in Istanbul already ahead of that Super Cup match against Liverpool.
But Frank Lampard is already facing questions over some of his selection decisions following Sunday's 4-0 loss at Manchester United. Alex Aljo is at Stamford Bridge and she's looking for answers.
Yeah, looking for answers, and Frank Lampard will certainly be looking for solutions. It was Chelsea's heaviest ever opening day league defeat. And after the game, Frank Lampard said it was a reality check, putting it down to 4 mistakes against a clinical Manchester United side. But the new manager is well aware of the demands of the Premier League and says he's ready to compete with the top teams this season.
I know how tough it is, and I know that the Premier League is as tough as it's ever been, with the standards that Manchester City and Liverpool both set last year, and everyone else was slightly behind that. But I would certainly not be manager of Chelsea and sit here and say we can't compete at that top end. I think we can.
He chose youth over experience on Sunday, with Olivier Giroud starting on the bench and Chelsea Academy product Tammy Abraham leading the line. The 21-year-old struck the post early on, but after that he's seldom troubled the new-look Manchester United defence. He scored 26 goals for Aston Villa in the Championship last season, but there are doubts as to whether he can make up for the departure of Eden Hazard, who scored 21 goals for Chelsea last season and has left big shoes to fill in attack. There's no time for Chelsea to dwell on that defeat to Manchester United, because they now have the UEFA Super Cup final to think about, and the team are already over 2,000 miles away from here in Istanbul ahead of that game against Liverpool tomorrow night. And Frank Lampard has some big selection decisions to make if he wants to win the UEFA Super Cup, a trophy he never won as a player.
And then, shall we, Natalie? I mean, how big a blow is this? It's only a few weeks, but the way that they play, the way that they're set up, the way that Klopp drives this team forward starts with Alisson. And as it was mentioned there, they have signed Adrian, a very good goalkeeper, but they're going to miss him, aren't they? Particularly for the games coming up against Southampton, Arsenal and Burnley.
Yeah, it's obviously bad news, especially when you think how important Alisson is in the build-up, in the way that Klopp once mentioned that he was impressed with Alisson, not only as a goalkeeper, but as a footballer. So I think that really sums up the importance of Alisson for Liverpool. It's 2 seasons in a row that he doesn't have proper holidays, because he played the World Cup and he played Copa America, so he had a muscle injury. It's unfortunate he didn't have many big injuries in his career, so he should be quick to recover. But let's not forget that Adrian, he's a very good goalkeeper. I've always liked him ever since West Ham. I think his skills, of course, he's not Alisson. You can't have two Alissons on the same team. But I think he will do the job. I think we should look at him with more confidence because I like the way that I like his presence. I think he's a very secure goalkeeper. So it's not a tragedy.
And it's funny how football works out, isn't it? Because you could see how much it meant to Adrian against Norwich at Anfield when he came on. And this is a guy who was tossed aside by West Ham. His contract was up, a free agent. He was out of work, and the next minute he's playing for a team going for the Premier League title, and he's starting.
I mean, football can be very strange. When he would have signed for Liverpool, his expectations of actual playing time would have been very low. Maybe in a League Cup, or maybe in a game that's meaningless. But to go straight in and now to probably be there for up to 2 months, if it's a serious calf injury that can take a couple of months to heal, is for him is great, but for Liverpool, of course, is not ideal, because it means that whoever's backing him up now has a chance of playing in a position where Liverpool might find a bit of weakness. It was very interesting because I had a chance to speak to Pete Kravitz, Liverpool's number 3 assistant coach, and they were having a conversation before the start of the season about the importance of a third goalkeeper. And someone had mentioned to them that statistically the chances of a third goalkeeper playing are very, very low. Below 1%, apparently. But
below what?
Below 1%.
Below 1%?
Yeah, when you look at all third goalkeepers and, look at how many games they play, less than 1 in 1,000 apparently play a game. So now they find themselves with a realistic chance of suddenly a third goalkeeper having to play.
Well, we've got Scott Carson, who signed for Manchester City. He was at Derby last season. He, probably won't feature with Bravo and, of course, Ederson both fit ahead of him. But Andy Lonergan, a player that Liverpool are looking at, who was released by Middlesbrough, 35-year-old, who I think was on pre-season with them and impressed on a trial. But, he could be featuring at some stage, couldn't he?
Yes, it's a different profile. He's much more experienced. I think he's 35 years old. And he had a chance to be with the group during pre-season, helping out Liverpool. Yeah, the chances are slim, but in football you never know, really.
The team looked really sharp, Liverpool, didn't they? And a lot of the questions in the build-up to this game were the front three, Firmino, Salah, Mane, who'd all had international commitments over the summer. Could that come back to haunt them, the fact that they've had such a busy summer? Are all these players used to it now, given that there is never a rest, is there? You've got Nations League, you've got World Cups, you've got Euros, you've got Copa Americas.
Yeah. So there are two views on this. I mean, some coaches and some people working on the fitness side of things say it is really, really problematic if these guys don't have a break. Others are saying those issues tend to come back a little bit later. So now these players come in being still very, very fit. It's almost as if they didn't have a break. But then in December and January, they might be more tired than players who've had a proper time off in the summer. So these are issues that might come. We used to do a lot of training, and now I've completely changed. I realized that you have to give players much more time off because they need to recover a lot more than perhaps in other leagues. So they've learned from their mistakes. But it is, if there's any concern, and I don't think there are many with this team, it is that there is no ready-made sort of replacement for these guys.
Like Manchester City have put in place, for example.
But
it feels like they're one injury off, doesn't it?
But it's also by design to a certain extent, because they don't want another Salah and Mane on the bench thinking, when am I going to play? What's happening with me? They quite like the team dynamic with players who know that they are big players and players just behind, like Origi, for example, who accept their position, but then when they're called upon, always seem to do well.
But it's a risk, isn't it? Because if they were to lose a Virgil van Dijk or a player of that calibre, then you're rolling the dice a little bit.
Yes. When I saw the lineup for the Community Shield, Liverpool's lineup for the Community Shield, I was like, but Firmino just arrived. Salah the same. I think it will be more around how Liverpool can cope with that, because everybody talks about Liverpool's team not being too deep, not having too many options, and if you look in December and January, it's always tricky for every team. Liverpool struggled in January. That's when they got their worst results, their only defeat, and they dropped some very important points last January. So I'm curious to see how they will cope with all that, especially considering that in December they have another championship to play, another title to try to win. So yes, we'll see. What comforts me in a sense watching Liverpool against Norwich was that I think in that match it was more balanced, because in the Community Shield I felt that Liverpool really missed Mane, really, like with all their heart. The team was very much, everything was happening in the left-hand side, and this time it was more balanced. Origi played better, but yes, we'll see. They managed to beat Barcelona with all the injuries, so
in one word, Liverpool title winners this season?
Sorry?
In one word, Liverpool title winners this season? One word. Yeah, Raphael Honigstein and Natalie Gedra in the studio with me. Natalie, Raheem Sterling was absolutely exceptional, wasn't he, against West Ham? A hat-trick on the opening day. He scored 5 goals in pre-season. In fact, when you look back over the last 2 years, 35 goals, 32 assists in the Premier League. He's 24 years old.
No, it's impressive. And he tries so many more things than he used to do. He has much more confidence on the pitch, and you can feel it the way he sees the match and the options that he uses. He has much more repertoire. He offers so much more to the attacking City side. So it's impressive to see him moving around, very confident. He's a whole different player. I even felt that he wouldn't the penalty with Aguero. He should have go for it, because Aguero he hasn't.
You
been...
could see he wanted to, couldn't he? And he just thought, can I argue with Sergio Aguero?
Give him the hat trick. Come on.
He got it in the end.
Yeah, he got it in the end. Yes,
after which was, I mean, a very interesting day for VAR, which we'll touch on later. When you break down his goals, 6 goals 2015-16, fast forwarding to 18 goals 17-18, 17 goals 18-19. And I always think back to that clip that we saw of Pep coaching him, and you know Pep Guardiola very well, but Pep coaching him specifically, this was a player that when Pep came in, a lot of the Manchester City fans would have been willing to let go and trust Pep going forward.
Yeah, and it was Pep who called him while he was still with England and having a lot of negative press, and tried to give him a bit of confidence ahead of the time at City. So I think the coaching from Pep, both as far as the man management is concerned, but perhaps more importantly on the tactical and technical aspects of his game, really paying dividends. Okay, City are always creating a lot of chances. As an attacking player, you will score a lot of goals, but it is those movements, it is those making the right decisions, as you said, Natalie, that has now taken him to a whole new level. Because there were still, I think over the last few years, moments where you kind of felt, especially in an England shirt, oh, Raheem Sterling's bearing down on goal, he's probably not going to score.
Yeah.
He's probably
That's
not
fair
going to
to
make
say,
the right
wasn't it? Yeah,
decision.
Yes.
But he is now consistently, and he has grown off the pitch as well, taking responsibility for a lot of social issues, and on the pitch is being reflected by the importance for this team.
And his finishing has improved so much. He used to miss so many goals. It was, of course, a lack of confidence, but he's a better finisher. He sees better the game. He's a whole different player.
I think there's a focus as well on, going back to those seasons which I touched on, 16, 17, 15, 16. He used to try and side foot finish all the time, and that's something that's been coached out of him as well, to hit through the ball with his laces, which is something he wasn't particularly great at before. In terms of his position, Natalie, he played in the Community Shield, didn't he, as the number 9, as spearheading the front 3. He went wide again against West Ham. Pep Guardiola, after that game at the London Stadium, saying that the central striker position is going to, well, that will be an incredible position for him, is his exact words going forward. What are your feelings on that?
If Pep's saying he knows Sterling better than all of us, because look at what everything Pep has done with Sterling.
Do you think that's the plan then? I mean, I know that Gabriel Jesus is there and has signed a long-term contract, but post Sergio Aguero days, that you could see Sterling leading the line there regularly?
Maybe. I think I would have to see more of Sterling in that position, because he's showing to be very consistent playing wide, and he grew a lot playing this area of the pitch. So, but I think Pep has this talent of taking something out of the player that we couldn't see before. And this is very characteristic of his work. So if he sees that potential, we must pay attention to it, yeah.
Just one more on Raheem Sterling, and I want your thoughts on this from a sort of Barcelona point of view. Pep afterwards saying that he's a very talented player, but he needs the group. In fact, he said that about all of his Manchester City players. And is that a good point? I mean, does Lionel Messi need the group? Does Cristiano Ronaldo need the group as much as, say, Raheem Sterling does when you look at individual player, individual skill?
He's not quite at that level. He is a lot younger than those two guys. If he continues to produce as many goals as you mentioned over the last couple of years with the same consistency and perhaps play in a more advanced role as an out-and-out striker, then maybe he can become that kind of player. But there is something in Pep's nature that doesn't just look for things that maybe others have missed. I think there's also a sort of personal ambition for him to turn players into something perhaps that they didn't quite believe. He's tried it with Messi very successfully. He's tried it with Mario Götze, for example, less successfully. And I think maybe we'll see that process being repeated with Sterling. And the signs initially are very, very promising.
One man who made his debut for Manchester City, Rodri.
Yes.
Big signing coming in from Atletico Madrid. Is this the season that we see Fernandinho playing a lot less than he did last season?
He may play in the back. It's a role that he performed
as a centre-back.
As a centre-back, it's a role that he performed a few times last season. He will have those talks with the coaching staff and with Pep to play more as a centre-back. But yes, because Rodri, I think he is the definition of a Guardiola player in that position. Yes, because he sees the game as a whole. He knows how important he is to the build-up. So he's very consistent defending, but he is very. He looks very secure when he's with the ball. Of course, he's adapting to City's way of play, but even in Spain, everybody points him out as the next Busquets. So. It's very promising to see Rodri. I think he will play a lot more. He will be the number one option for this position, and maybe Fernandinho, which is reasonable because Fernandinho is already 33. He struggled with injuries last season.
The two games that he missed last season, I remember back to back. It was Crystal Palace and Leicester, and City lost both of them. And clearly that was a position that was highlighted with Fernandinho missing. Interestingly, Pep's comments on Rodri, every day I'm more convinced that this deal will be one of the best that the club has done in the last years. Guardiola said that on Friday. He said it'll be an incredible holding midfielder for this club and for English football for many years to come. It was his physicality which was impressive, wasn't it, as well?
He's a complete player. He's got the attributes that you need in that position because there is defensive work to be done, and you need to have strength, and you need to have the sort of the sense for where the danger is and to be in the right position. But also with City, you're going to have the ball, and you will be a playmaker in a deep position, and that's an absolute key position for a Guardiola team. That's the position that the opposition will try to press. They'll try to take the ball away from that guy, and I think with Fernandinho there were one or two signs that perhaps he's getting a little bit too susceptible to that pressure, whereas Rodri can just step out of the pressure, drop a shoulder, like Gundogan also has done very well recently, and can start the attacks through the middle where City are at their most effective.
And what do we read into the praise? Because he's heaped praise on Rodri here, hasn't he? And I'm thinking when
I'm laughing a little bit because Guardiola loves to heap praise on players.
But he hasn't done with Sergio Aguero in the past. I know it wasn't a new signing, but he hasn't done, and he said that he needed 18 months to get up to where he wanted to be.
Phil Foden, the most talented players he's ever seen.
I mean, how much of it do we believe? The most talented player he's ever worked with. There's a certain Lionel Messi.
From 3 years at Munich, I must say we should take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt because he was so effusive about every single player. Philipp Lahm was the best player he's ever worked with, who's Messi.
So what is that? Because that it must be strategic. Guardiola doesn't come in to say something when he doesn't mean it.
I think there's two things. I think he likes to give that confidence to the players. I think he likes to give them that feeling, and they believe him, of course, when he says it. And I think it's a nice way to directing the media agenda. If we're talking about this now because he gave us
He's very good at it.
That pass, and we're running onto it, and we're not even looking back. He's very good at that. But he said things like, you know, one of your compatriots, I would love to have 1,000 Dantes in my team. Dantes 2 weeks later was sold.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's something behind it. There's a method behind the madness in everything, isn't there? And of course, Manchester City.